Mr. Speaker.
Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and that will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en dat u ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelela ilezwe letu na bantu balo, umusile ukulungo kwepondo letu. Kosi sikelela I Afrika, Kina abantwanu bayo, kokela inkokelizayo, yeniki ukolo I Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Good afternoon, honourable members. Before we proceed, I would like to remind members about some of the logistical arrangements. As has been our practice to date, honourable members will participate in the sitting of the House from here in the chamber with the presiding officer and the table staff and via Microsoft Teams. Our standing rules have been accordingly amended to accommodate such hybrid sittings. The honourable members experiencing challenges in connecting to the sitting are requested to contact the WCPP ICT colleagues who will assist to resolve the connectivity challenges. The quorum requirements for the sitting of the House are provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules. Unless there is an indication of a unanimous concurrence, voting will be confined to members present in the House and on the hybrid system who are entitled to cast their votes as per the ATC issued on the 11th of August 2020. Members present in the chamber and via Microsoft Teams have all the privileges and immunities imparted by law. Members who are considered out of order by the presiding officer will have their microphones muted and called to order. The Sergeant at Arms will record members' attendance. In instances where these directives do not cover a particular eventuality, the standing rules must be applied, and in instances where the standing rules cannot be applied, the ruling by the presiding officer is final. Members, all microphones have been muted. However, for those members participating in the sitting via Microsoft Teams, you are requested to use the raise hand functionality of the system when you desire to raise a point of order, and I will recognize you. When an honourable member in the chamber wishes to rise on a point of order, such honourable member may address the presiding officer as expected, but must mute their microphones when they have completed speaking. Honourable members are requested to please ensure that the microphones are unmuted when the presiding officer recognizes them. When they are done speaking, to please mute their microphones. The media have also been granted access to the MS Teams meeting as guests of the WCPP. However, members of the press may not use the chat room or speak or activate their cameras while the sitting is in progress. If an individual who is not a member of the House activates their microphone and video camera, such an individual will be exited from the sitting immediately. For the sitting honourable members, language translation services are available in the chamber as usual and on Microsoft Teams via the respective channels. Honourable members in participating in the sitting of the House must please access the language translation services via a second device. And if you have earphones available, please use them for the language translation services. Honourable members, I would like to remind you that no interjections are allowed during these hybrid sittings, and to this end, I draw the honourable members' attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. Honourable members, we will now proceed to interpellation as printed on the question paper. I recognise the Minister of Agriculture, Minister Meyer.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. In 2021, Minister Toko Dadisa declared hemp as an agricultural crop and permitting moved to the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, and licenses for medicinal cannabis are now issued by SAPRA, the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority. In the same year, in 2021, the National Cannabis Master Plan was launched and provided the guide for provinces to develop their own plans aligned to the pillars of the national plan. And therefore, in line with this, the Western Cape Department of Agriculture commissioned a study to look into this particular matter. And the Department of Agriculture has now completed the study to look into the current and future scenarios for the production and the processing and the export of cannabis and hemp in the agricultural sector during the late 2022. And this study was completed 2 months ago in the month of February, and the Western Cape Cannabis Framework and Implementation Plan was launched on the 28th of March on my budget day. And the compilation of this plan involved extensive stakeholder engagement across many spheres, including other provincial departments. And as I've indicated already, Honourable Speaker, I will now take this plan to the Western Cape Cabinet for adoption with the implementation plan. Once the Cabinet approves the plan, I have already indicated then through the chairperson of the Standing Committee that we be invited to the Standing Committee to go into the details of the plan as a new subsector in the Western Cape, formerly now linked to the Department of Agriculture, based on the proclamation from the National Minister to also declare hemp as an agricultural product, permitting it also to move to the National Department of Agriculture, and by virtue of that, also to the provincial departments of agriculture. And so after tabling it, discussing it within the Standing Committee, we are very happy to answer some further questions. As I mentioned, this is a new industry, and we would be very happy also to engage with the Standing Committee and the further industry in this particular regard. Now the policy. Honourable Speaker, the policy, the legislative and regulatory context is now changing rapidly, both in South Africa and internationally, as perceptions and associated policies are now shifting towards medicinal and recreational cannabis, as well as industrial hemp. I view it as a new subsector, like my colleague, the Honourable Member Maran, view this as a new subsector, and we have to explore all the opportunities for job creation in the economy in the Western Cape. And one of the key characteristics of this framework is that it will change the regulatory landscape in a transversal nature. I welcome it, and this is a new industry, and we will support. I was in this week, Honourable Speaker, in a discussion with commercial agriculture, and it is clear that commercial agriculture certainly will not go into full scale in this particular space.
Honourable Minister, can you please wrap up for your first, that's the end of your first input.
Honourable Speaker, on that note, I take a seat.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now see the Honourable van der Westhuizen.
Agbare Speaker, deur u aan die minister, ons soek altyd geleenthede vir nuwe landbouprodukte, vir werkskepping, vir waarde toevoeging. Wat is u departement se ervaring van die paar mense wat alreeds met verlof op kommersiële skaal tans met cannabis en hempboer, is dit vir hulle 'n winsgewende industrie? Stel hulle belang om uit te brei of is daar miskien dalk meer van drome en hersenskimme en so 'n bietjie misterie rondom die boerdery met cannabis en hemp? En as ek daarby mag voeg, het verlede week gesê dat dit 'n taamlike intensiewe gewas is wat 800 mm water of meer in 'n jaar verlang en dus in die grootste dele van ons provinsie kunsmatige besproeiing sal verg. Hoe affekteer dit die moontlike winsgewendheid en potensiaal van hierdie as 'n nuwe landbouproduk? Baie dankie.
Dankie, agbare van der Westhuizen. Now see the Honourable Maran.
Thanks, Speaker, and good afternoon to the Premier, MECs and members present. Speaker, according to the National Cannabis Master Plan, the cannabis industry is estimated to be at 28 billion rand. With such a lucrative industry, the Western Cape can tap into and unlock an extensive economic and energy, especially in our rural areas of this province. We must be able to integrate such new initiatives into rural development. The cannabis and hemp sector has a number of challenges that it currently faces. Some of the interventions we will expect must address: 1, high barriers for new entrants, especially black entrants; negative public perceptions about the use of cannabis; seed supply challenges where farmers are at risk of being sold poor quality seed with low germination percentages; manufacturing challenges, research and development, proliferation of unregulated cannabis products, fragmentation of this industry, market challenges and market concentration, where the challenge for government will be how to avoid such a situation where big corporations might try to dominate the whole dagga and hemp value chain at the expense of rural communities that have been growing these crops for hundreds and hundreds of years. To conduct the activities, all enterprises and organizations involved in the breeding, multiplication and sale of cannabis seeds must be registered and have legal permits. Seeds for the export market, as well as seed for local markets, should be evaluated for quality and viability. Black farmers will require assistance with cultivar choices, cultivation management, pest and disease control, harvesting and post-harvest practices. Farmers engaged in the cannabis industry require dedicated funding. Financial assistance may take the form of grants, loans, equity, or a combination of the three.
Honourable Maran,
We
can I
wish
please
to
ask,
see these
Honourable Maran,
interventions being
can I
implemented.
please ask that you wrap up?
We wish to see these interventions being implemented in the Western Cape in line with the National Cannabis Master Plan. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Maran. Honourable van der Westhuizen.
Dankie, agbare Speaker. Deur u aan Minister Meyer. Minister Meyer, die Wes-Kaap het al reeds een produk, 'n baie belangrike uitvoerproduk, 'n produk wat baie werksgeleenthede skep in die wynbedryf. Verwys hier na hierdie wynbedryf wat ongelukkig ook as een van sy neeweffekte al 'n klomp sosiale ewels veroorsaak het en vir baie mense groot hartseer besorg het. Tot watter en hier praat mense nou nog van die dopstelsel, jy weet die word gedurig nog verwysings daarna gemaak, alhoewel dit al vir jare verbode is. En ek wens so die mense wat daarna verwys wil, as hulle weet van gevalle waar dit nog voorkom, wel uiteindelik die klagtes gaan lê by die polisie. Maar om terug te kom by my vraag, Minister Meyer, tot watter mate is u besorg dat die meer vrylike verbouing van cannabis, weliswaar onder die vaandel van vir medisinale gebruik, dan ook kan bydra tot 'n nuwe sosiale ewel in die Weskaap en dat dit uiteindelik weer die begroting van ons departement van maatskaplike ontwikkeling en al die instellings wat hulle bedryf onder druk mag plaas. Baie dankie.
Dankie achtbare van heer Westhuizen. Honorable Minister.
Speaker en aan ons twee lede. Ek wil sê, meneer Honorable Member Maran, vir die eerste keer in hierdie huis stem ek 100% met u insette saam. Ons het mekaar uiteindelik gevind. Baie dankie vir u bydrae, want dit is op hierdie basis wat ons die land kan vorentoe neem, dat ons mekaar moet vind. Dankie vir jou insette. Dankie, ons gaan weer daarna toe. Order. Maar ek wil die lid bedank, ook vir sy rooi ligte wat hy uitgestuur het in terme van seker maak dat die mense wat tradisioneel in hierdie bedryf is, dat ons vir hulle moet beskerm. Ek neem absoluut kennis en ek sien uit dat achtbare Maran ook verdere gesprek met ons het tydens die voorlegging aan die staande komitee. I can find almost no disagreement with the content of what he proposed and he envisaged. The honourable member, the chairperson of the committee, Mr. van der Westhuizen, absolutely correct in terms of the cannabis production licensing, what is the landscape, what is the potential, what is happening, and are there any major risks also from the social perspective. Now we know that traditionally cannabis in the Western Cape is not at the scale like other provinces with a long history of smaller farmers such as Pondoland in the Eastern Cape and KZN, where it is estimated that there are many thousands of small-scale growers, and in the Western Cape traditionally communities do nevertheless grow for their own use and subsistence in all areas of the province, particularly in the West Coast towns, throughout the Cape Winelands, the Southern Cape being the best known areas for the production also of dagga for mass adult use market. And I think since this is a new industry, the word abuse is the grammatical construct of abnormal use. Anything that you abnormally use, you are abusing it. And I want to encourage the citizens of the Western Cape not to abnormally use it. And so, particularly for the medicinal value, scientifically, empirical evidence suggests that there are value in this, but there's always a danger in any new industry that there are certain people that will abuse it, and we will certainly not want to see the budget of social development to increase. We want to see a reduction in the budget of social development, because if the budget increase, it means the problems increase. And so we will work with our sister department of health and our sister department of community safety. We will work with our sister department of social development to particularly address the issues that honourable member has raised, and there are a risk in this particular regard. But as there is now a new policy, legislation, regulatory framework, we want to make sure that this is governed well through a hemp and cannabis production governance framework, so that we can also regulate it like all other industries. So I am concerned that people may abuse it, but I see more the production market, and as honourable member Maran has indicated, the huge value, 28 billion rand in the South African economy, and the huge potential in creating jobs. Yesterday, this cabinet of the Western Cape adopted the growth for job strategy, and I will want to contribute to make sure that we create jobs in the Western Cape. And I believe that a cannabis framework will go a long way.
Honourable Minister, please wrap up. Your time has expired.
Honourable Speaker, I'm very scared of the Chief Whip, so I will sit down.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that brings us to the end of interpellation 1. We now move on to interpellation 2, and I see the Honourable Minister, Minister Mania.
Thank you, Speaker. I'd like to begin by thanking the honourable member for raising this topic, which of course deals with the importance of principals as leaders in our schools. I'm sure the members will be aware that when you come across a great school, you can be sure that there is a great principal. That is why it's so important to find the right person for the job and not to rush the process. It's also why we are the only province to conduct competency assessments for candidates nominated by schools for the appointment as permanent principals. This adds about 2 to 3 weeks of the recruitment process, but I'm sure the House will agree that it is a vital step to take to ensure that we appoint capable candidates to lead our schools. Furthermore, for members who are perhaps not aware of how principals are appointed, school governing bodies are responsible for the recruitment and selection process and the submission of nominations for appointments. The department provides guidance on due dates for the finalization of the process, but of course this is subject to the availability of SGBs to conclude the recruitment process within the specified timeframes. The process is roughly as follows. First, an advert is placed in a vacancy list, and there are approximately 4 weeks for candidates to submit an application. The applications are then made to the relevant SGB, which then undertakes the process to nominate a candidate. The following steps take place within the remit of the SGB, and the time frame is dependent on the availability of the SGB to complete each process. Of course, an SGB meeting is set up to process the shortlist. The shortlist meeting is held. Interviews, of course, take place. An interview committee is convened to decide which nominee is nominated. Nominees, of course, undergo the competency assessment to which I've referred. An SGB meeting is then held to ratify the nominee, and all the required documentation is then uploaded by the SGB. Our department then proceeds to quality assurance and looks over the content of the nomination, finalizes the vetting, and then, of course, routing the nomination for approval for the post. It's a detailed process. It's a detailed process that takes a bit of time, but must be followed properly. It should also be noted that we only appoint principals from the start of a quarter so that the school they are moving from is not unduly disrupted. During this time, a school cannot, of course, be left leaderless, so we appoint an acting principal or a contract principal into that post while the permanent post is being filled. Acting appointments are, of course, also a great way of developing leadership talent from within a school. And so, to the member's question, the impact on school functioning, of course, is minimized through the appointment of an acting principal, while the important process to appoint a principal is underway. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I now see the Honourable Syed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and I want to thank the Minister for his response. And we do agree with the Minister on the need for us to have principals and to have strong principals at our school. And we also appreciate the process that the Minister has outlined. And I think we see the importance of that particular process. In a written reply, however, to my question that was posed in September last year, the MEC stated that the vacancy rate annually for principal and deputy principal posts was 10%, and that the legislation does allow for the appointment of principals who are acting and deputy principals who are acting to ensure that the school management team posts are filled with zero impact on teaching and learning. As of September 2022, there were a total of 323 and 481 vacant posts for principals and deputy principals, respectively, in the Western Cape. In certain schools, Speaker, such as Bloekombos Primary School in the Metro East District, the post for the deputy principal position has been vacant since 2018, before we were even sworn in this particular term. At Lwandle High School, in Kondlo's constituency, the department took a subject advisor to act as the principal. Member Nkondlo has raised this issue with the department. I've also raised the issue with the department, and the councillor Deniso has also raised the issue with the department. The DA has had a hand in destabilizing schools in our vulnerable areas through the failure to fill these positions and not exercising political oversight over the department in doing so. By his department's own admission in our budget deliberations last month in this particular chamber, the failure to permanently fill these positions leads to weakening of school functionality and causes instability, which in turn impacts negatively on learning. MEC Maine's department's school basic functionality tool, which is used to measure the improvement of school functionality levels over time, uses a 10-point functionality criteria, which includes schools having permanent principals leading a unified SMT, as well as filling of all vacancies and or having contingency plans for vacant posts. It is thus no surprise that only 415 schools out of the 1,049 schools that were sampled in the 2021-2022 academic year met all the requirements, while 634 schools failed to meet all the requirements. The failure to fill vacancies of school principals is causing instability at schools. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of your first contribution. I now see Honourable Bartman. Order, members.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, to the Minister, I want to find out.
Order.
With regards to the reason principals are leaving their posts, and with so many senior principals approaching retirement age, is the department concerned about the retirement wave that has been identified by researchers, which has been experienced amongst teachers amongst the coming decade?
Order, members.
And in this light, Speaker, I would also like to find out what skills and development are offered to acting principals, especially when they enter the positions. And as a Laingsburg constituency, this is actually quite really close to my heart, because the previous principal at the Laingsburg High School threatened to leave year after year after year, and things weren't going well under his term at the time. And when he finally left after a very angry Western Cape Provincial Parliament education visit, which I requested by the then chairperson, member Lorraine Vuota, and she came in, and then all of a sudden the principal left after, I think, being very scared of the member at the time. And it was under the acting principal's leadership and with the support of the community, without bringing politics into the situation, that all of a sudden Laingsburg High School became then the next year one of the most improved schools in the province. And Minister Schaefer at the time actually invited me to that. And I also want to find out whether the WCD thus has a pipeline in order for upcoming teachers and also those who identify potential leadership qualities, so that we are able to upskill and develop those people who could become principals in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Bartman. I now see Honourable Kasim on the hybrid system. Honourable Kasim.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm sorry, Speaker. Apologies. The issue of the Western Cape schools operating without permanent full-time principals create instability, as what it would have been, or rather seen with, at the events at Heathfield High School as an example last year. It also brings about uncertainty among learners, educators, the SGBs and parents, so far as the short-term and long-term goals of the schools are concerned. So as much as it is not desirable to chop and change the principals, it is equally undesirable to have a school that does not know the future of an acting principal. And it would make sense to have an acting principal at the school for a short period, say in a case where the principal is on sick leave or attending to a family emergency. However, it does not make sense for schools to go for years operating with acting principals in situations where the former principal went on retirement, and even in a case where principals step down or are being dismissed. So the province needs a proactive department rather of education that has a working succession plan in place as soon as it becomes aware that a number of principals are due for retirement. The interview process to fill up those principal posts must take place a few months before that actual retirement. So having said that, my question is, do we have any schools in the province in which the actual principal has retired and thereafter there's a temporary principal who acts in the capacity for more than 6 months or more, or for more than a year? If so, what is taking the department so long to fill up those posts if they knew long time ago that the principal is due for retirement? And also, which regions has the majority of schools led by acting principals? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Kasim. I now see Honourable Christians, who's also joining us on the hybrid system. Honourable
Thank you,
Christian.
Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I was covered from the previous speakers, but I'm just thinking another question. Can the Minister tell us where we have acting principals in positions at schools? Are their performance the same as principals that's entrenched, principals that's been with the school, principals that's really, leading from the front? When you look at the acting is only acting for the meantime. There's no certainty, no guarantee that that person will be appointed. So it means, the heart and soul is most probably not into the school. Just the example, at Creswell High School that we visited not so long ago on an oversight visit, it was shocking to see the results of that particular school, and they had an acting principal there. Mathematics was a small portion, 15 pupils were in the mathematics class, and not a single child got over 50%. Accountancy, 17 children in the accountancy class, not one child got over 50%. I want to know from the Minister the results of the acting principals. Is it on par with teachers that's really out, principals that's out there leading by example, setting the pace by acting that does not know if they're going to get the position or not? And I just want to agree with the previous speakers. When a person resigns immediately, it's difficult to plan. But when a person reaches retirement, there should be plans in place so that the process of advertising and the school governing body and the department, all of that should conclude when that principal goes on retirement. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. Honourable Said.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Allow me to thank Member Christians for those inputs. I think that further underlines the concerning situation that we are in. And the MEC needs to tell us the reasons as to why we've got such a high rate of acting principals and acting deputy principals. And we know he's outlined processes, but we want reasons beyond the process. What's happening on the ground? And what are the mitigating moves that are going to be put into place by his department? Honourable Speaker, we also usually witness in this House the seriousness of matters such as these at hand is yet again reduced to a political game by the DA in this chamber. There's no political will to address the matter and ensure that all schools have permanent principals and other SMTs which affect the functionality of schools. There's a decline in overall academic performance, as Member Christians has pointed out. As Member Kasim has also alluded to, the Heathfield High situation is another case in point. The school has declined by 18% in its matric pass rate ever since the persecution and kangaroo court against Principal Newman. The unprecedented deployment of Metro Police, tactical order police to deal with learner discipline at the school is another case in point. There's been losses of parent and teacher confidence also at Heathfield High School. The Newman persecution has also had a social psychological impact on many learners. And we understand the matter is now also still underway, but it must be concluded. What we have witnessed in many instances where there are vacancies for principals and their deputies is that staff are jockeying for promotion and in turn not acting in the best interest of the school but in self-interest. We reiterate again our demand for the frivolous charges against Principal Newman to be dropped and for his immediate reinstatement. These things did not happen when Member Dugmore was the MEC for Education, when Member Gabru was the MEC for Education, during the period of the African National Congress. Other cases, name one instance where that happened. Other cases where the DA administration failed to intervene effectively include the De Crane Secondary School in Touwsrivier, where the deputy principal is allegedly acting principal and running the school as she wants. After the principal left unceremoniously in 2021, the department has failed to intervene. We've spoken to the department and they failed to intervene. Honourable Speaker, in closing, our MEC must tell us what causes the mixed reactions when it comes to the ethical code of conduct of some principals and teachers versus others. The stark contrast
Honourable
in the
Syed,
handling of the cases,
please conclude your
I will do that,
sentence.
of Ned Douman principal, Rhodes High principal, Zwanswijk principal,
Thank you,
former
Honourable
Golden Grove
Syed.
and Grove principal.
Thank you
who
very
enjoy
much.
the
Please
department's
take your seat, Honourable
protection
Syed.
compared to new.
Honourable Syed, please take your seat. Thank you very much. Honourable members, when I ask that you take your seat, you must please do so, because I will cut the microphone in order to make sure that we all are treated equally in the House. Honourable Minister, I now see you. Minister Mania.
Thank you, Speaker. I must obviously thank all the members for their contribution to the interpellation, which of course focused on key leadership positions. And I must emphasize that it is absolutely key that we get the right person and that we do not rush the process. Now, in response to a few members' positions, let me begin with the Honourable Cameron Dugmore's incumbency in the education portfolio. I, of course, studied it carefully, and I was advised that his crowning achievement, Speaker, his crowning achievement was to do a handstand while Minister of Education at a school, much to the horror of the principals and pupils attended. Now, when we come to the
order members, order members, Minister, order members. Minister, can I please caution you? Please speak to the chair. And honourable members, please settle down. Honourable Minister, over to you.
Thank you. Speaker, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition was a much younger man then, but perhaps he'd consider doing a handstand now and telling us whether he is still up to the job.
Order.
Speaker, I think the Honourable Khalid Sayed must be careful of making himself vulnerable to exaggeration. For the few of us, or the few among us who read the Cape Times, I noticed this morning that he had elevated minor hairline cracks at schools to major structural defects, which of course, I think at least when it comes to school build, diminishes the honourable member's credibility, which of course was already diminished when he opposed the additional allocation of 100 million rand to build more schools.
Order, members. Order.
To education for learners in the Western Cape.
Minister, you can continue. Order, members. Minister, you can continue.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm certainly not finished. I'm just beginning.
Honourable Syed, is that a point of order? Honourable Minister, please take your seat.
Yes, Chair. The Minister is misleading the House. He must read the newspaper properly. Maybe I must print it for him next
Syed,
time.
that is not a...
I will deliver the newspaper to his office the next time.
Honourable Syed, please don't to explain your point of order. That's not a point of order. Honourable Minister, please continue.
Thank you. I note that the Honourable Khalid Sayed is one of the very few members who reads the Cape Times in this House. I'd be delighted to receive a copy. Now,
Order, members.
Now.
No, Minister, you can continue. Please speak to me.
Thank you. Honourable Speaker, on the question of exaggeration, in fact, there are 237 acting principals, but permanent candidates for 80 of those posts have already been appointed, which means that in effect we have 150 posts to fill. And most of those, of course, are currently in a process with SGBs. We, of course, keep a close eye on those timelines so that we can assist, as I described in great detail, so that we can assist SGBs to complete their processes, which if the honourable member, and I know that percentages are not his strong point, it's roughly about 10% of principals, which is not high, and of course, I'm advised, is quite normal. Then the Honourable Deirdre Bartman, of course, we are sort of not too concerned about the retirement wave because we've made a concerted effort, of course, to employ younger teachers. And certainly, if you look at our teachers under the age of 30, has really increased quite significantly. And the majority of our teachers, 63%, of course, are under the age of 30. The Honourable Kasim, I do not have the details to which you refer, but you are welcome to put a written question. And I have to say, I must compliment the member. She's starting to make a lot more sense on education than the EFF Military High Command, who, as you know, tried to shut down schools on a school holiday during their shutdown in the Western Cape.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Your time has expired. Please take your seat. Honourable members, thank you very much. That concludes interpellation number 2. Honourable members, that concludes interpellation number 2. Interpellation number 3 has been withdrawn, so that brings us to the end of interpellations. We will now deal with questions as printed on the question paper in terms of Rule 202. Honourable members, I wish to advise you that once the Honourable Premier or Honourable Minister has started the reply to the oral question as printed on the question paper, Honourable members must use the chat facility for this sitting of the House to indicate that they want to ask a follow-up question or indicated in the House. There are 4 opportunities for follow-up questions, but the Honourable Member who posed the initial oral question as printed on the question paper will have the first opportunity for a follow-up, and thereafter other Honourable Members may then use the remaining opportunities to ask follow-up questions. With that being said, I now recognise the Honourable Premier for question number 1.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you very much to the Honourable Class for the question. The first part of the question, we have allocated 60 million rand to this project in our own budget to roll out 100,000 packs at an estimated cost of around 600 rand each. Obviously, I say estimated because the design and, of course, the procurement process will eventually end up with giving us what that number will be. The selection criteria for the packs is still under discussion, and we will affect the distribution approach. However, it is a non-negotiable priority that low LSM households, residents who do not have the means and are struggling most due to load shedding, are the target audience of these energy packs. As the provincial government, it is essential that the most vulnerable residents form part of the planning of our initiative and that they are rolled out where they will have the greatest impact. Speaker, items that are being considered for the inclusion in the emergency power packs are a rechargeable portable light that can also do cell phone charging, or perhaps it's a cell phone charging pack. Also possibly a hot-cold food bag or something to make sure that when you do not have refrigeration or you do not have heating capability because of the blackout, that you are able to deal with either keeping things cold or warming things up. And specifically for me, I think moving into the winter months, that is really going to be critical for the warming things up. We understand that there are technicalities in the same households and they do not have power perhaps to charge these devices, so these are being taken into account, that this is a challenge that we are mindful of, and we anticipate the rollout to occur now in Q2. Then the second part of the question, Eskom has been bailed out to the tune of nearly 500 billion rand. And despite National Treasury throwing money at the ailing energy producer, load shedding continues to increase, making it harder for most of our poor residents to find a job, get to work, and care for their families. This is a spectacular failure on the part of the national government run by the ANC. In fact, for 2023, for all but one day in March, we have had load shedding every single day this year. We as the Western Cape government have chosen to step in, and that's where this allocation has been made of 1.1 billion for the next 3 years on our energy plan, which will see the residents and businesses increasingly protected from load shedding. On the packs, we will be reaching out to the Western Cape municipalities to ask them to partner us. In actual fact, this process is already underway, and our officials PTM along with MMs, have already been engaging on this. We've already been engaging the business sector to also partner with us on it. I have already had a meeting with the Minister of Energy, Dr. Ramaphosa, where our full plan has been given to him so that he can also apply his mind with regards to all of them, not just what kind of support they might be prepared to give us on the of enabling the poorest households in our province, but having a look at all of the projects and where we can find each other. I'm actually waiting for his reply on that. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. Honourable Class, the first opportunity, Honourable Class, and then I've got Honourable Fry, and then Honourable Dugmore, in that order. Honourable Class.
Thank you, Speaker. If your government cares for the poor, as you always claim, and with the knowledge that the province has some of the poor people living in a formal settlement who have never had electricity at all, why did your government not act earlier in providing these vulnerable people with power packs long time ago? Also, how do we know that these power packs your government is planning to distribute are not going to end up in well-off households where people can easily afford to buy them without any assistance from government? Moreover, what criteria will your department use to make sure that these power packs end up in households where they are needed the most, that is, poor households? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Class. Honourable members, I just want to remind you that you are entitled to ask one follow-up question. I counted 3 in that submission, and I didn't want to stop the Honourable member. But Premier, I'm going to leave it over to you to decide how you're going to answer that. But members, please note you are entitled to one follow-up question. Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much. I think the first part was generally dealt with in my question, but I think the part of the question that the Honourable Class asks is a really critical question. Because when you make power packs like this available, or whatever is going to end up in the pack, a heating system, whatever it's going to be, you have to make sure that it's going to end up where it is needed most. That's why it is put in place. And of course, we've got to make sure that we are using various database systems on how to analyze who these individuals or these families or these households are. So of course, we have the Stats SA data, we have local government data that looks at indigent households, and that doesn't differentiate between whether it's a legal informal settlement or a RDP house, or even an illegal informal settlement. And one of the big problems is, especially when you are rolling out electricity, is depending on who the land is owned by, it's difficult for municipalities to actually invest and roll out, as it is difficult for the national government and Eskom to roll out energy on other people's property and not on property that belongs to perhaps the municipality or government or those citizens. But it is a critical question, and that's part of the process of procurement, because the last thing in the world that I would like is to see these packs being abused. We need them to be able to give relief to the most vulnerable in our society. That is the whole idea of it. How do we make sure that we are protecting the most vulnerable? These are the people that are running out of money for candles. These are people that are running out of any capability of looking after their families. I mean, they are being so punished that they can't find a SASSA grant payment because the post office is being liquidated. Some of them are 3, I think, as Minister Fernandes was talking in Cabinet the other day, sometimes 3 months, and they haven't actually received their SASSA payment. These are the most vulnerable people in our society. And here's another intervention to say, how can we help? How can we make sure that your daughter or your son who's writing matric, who when you wake up in the morning doesn't have any electricity to enable them to get up and go to school, and tonight when they need to study, you've run out of money to even buy a candle for them to study. You are setting them up to fail, and that's why we're putting this in place. But that's why the process is critical, the analysis of what is feasible within the system that's going to work, going to have longevity in the pack itself, and then, of course, is it going to end up in the right place, and how do we make sure that it ends up in the right place?
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Honourable members, Honourable Kama on the hybrid system, I have noted your hand. That will be the 4th question for question number 1. Honourable Fry, Honourable Dugmore, and Honourable Kama. So in that order, Honourable Fry, I recognise you.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The question is to the Premier. What additional steps are being taken to collaborate with the private sector to maximise the positive impact of this initiative on the lives of the residents who need it most? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Fry. Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the Honourable Fry. I think that's also a critical question. And obviously, we are busy doing the analysis through local government ourselves, Stats SA, etc., to decide or to identify the number of households. The initial number given to me was about 250,000. That means the 100,000 that we planned for is too short. And that's why I personally, along with the Director General of the province and my advisor and the lead of our Energy Council, Mr. Alvi Lester, all 3 of us have engaged through the business platform, the JSE listed companies that are based in this region. We have already engaged them and said, are you able to come in as a partner? And I mean, the word out there is whoever in the private sector would like to add as a partner to this program, use their CSI money, a portion of their CSI money, because I think, you know, this is really stepping in where people are needing it most, and especially as we move into winter. And there has been a good positive response from these businesses. So the Honourable Fry, yes, so far we have started those engagements, and are also open to further engagements along with the engagements that we're also having with the municipalities.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Honourable Dugmore.
Very much, Deputy Speaker. I would like to ask the Premier that, given that the majority of financial pressure exerted on the poor in our province arises from the fact that because they are in arrears on, for instance, a water bill, that when they go and purchase electricity for the amount of, say, 100 Rand, they are penalized by the City of Cape Town and others and can only, in effect, buy 10 Rands worth of electricity. So are you prepared to make a statement in the interest of the poor of this province that practice of docking electricity purchases by the poor is something that you are opposed to?
Thank you, Honourable Dugmore. Honourable
Thank you to the
Premier.
Honourable Dugmore for that question. And obviously, I mean, he is well aware that anybody who sits in this category registers with the local authority or the municipality into the indigent space. And it's interesting that in actual fact, the announcement in this current budget, because he didn't refer to any of the other local authorities other than the City of Cape Town, that in actual fact, this budget of the City of Cape Town are actually extending the range of free services offered to these very specific households. But of course, it's also interesting to see that they've offered that across the board to not only the most vulnerable, but to the next 2 or 3 layers of LSM levels, making sure that it is actually easier to live in this city versus to live in other cities.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. I now see Honourable Kama on the hybrid system. Honourable Kama, please, I recognise you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And let me also appreciate the question from Member Class. And I think the fundamental question that and I think a Member Class even asked the Speaker in his follow-up question is that yes, we understand that we are dealing with the crisis of load shedding. But the poor that we are talking about in this province, we are talking about people because of many circumstances, even what Member Tagmo would mentioned of the electricity cards and whatnot due to financial pressures in these poor families, end up not having electricity. So whether there's load shedding or not, they still have a challenge of access to being provided with electricity. And the question, therefore, is to the Premier, what is government doing in terms of ensuring for a long-term sustainability, the people at least have a reasonable access to having electricity at an affordable price and ensuring that we are a government that protects the poor? And how far is this government willing to go in that regard?
Thank you, Honourable Kama. Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much. I want to say in affordability further than any other government across South Africa, number one. Number two, as far as I know, this is the only program for indigent households in energy relief packs in South Africa at the moment, even though I have already given it to the Minister of Energy or Electricity in our country to say, how do we make sure we get this rolled out further, and given him our whole plan, because absolutely, I think this is such a critical failure and has the worst impact on the very poorest of the poor in South Africa, the very poorest of the poor. And it is a tragedy that for so long, so many years, that the ANC have not managed to secure energy for all South Africans, and most importantly, for the poorest of the poor, because that is where it is hurting the most. Go and have a look at where the jobs are being lost. And the interesting thing is that it is in the very city of Cape Town that it's the only municipality that's already mitigating this risk. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens over time, because quite frankly, the ANC have failed the poorest of the poor again, because they cannot keep the lights on.
Honourable, is there a point of order? No, my apologies, Premier, that wasn't the point of order. You may continue. All right, the Premier has concluded. That brings us to the end of question number 1. Honourable members, we will now deal with questions that were standing over from Thursday, the 13th of April. So the next two questions, question 2 and 6, is from the 13th of April. And I'll see the Honourable Minister, Minister Allen.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I also wish to thank members of this particular House that due to unavailability last week, and I was at Minmec, which was cancelled a number of times before it was finally scheduled in. I was unable to be here, but I'm delighted that these questions were able to stand over. I also appreciate the question from the member, which is very specific, Speaker. And this particular question deals with a target that has been set in terms of the murder rate that we need to achieve by 2029. Speaker, it is a target that many government leaders will never want to commit to. However, we have a brave and we have an ambitious Premier here in the Western Cape who has actually set a target, because we don't see this merely as a number, we see it as people. And we remain biased towards people, so definitely we want to reduce the murder rate. So let me read the first line. Murder in the last financial year increased by 26.1%. It's not easy to state that figure, so let me state it again. Murder in the last financial year has increased by 26.1% nationally, and by 6.8% in the Western Cape. Murder then is on an increasing trajectory across our country. However, here in the Western Cape, we have seen as the only province that have recorded a single-digit percentage increase in murder for this particular financial year. Murder in the Western Cape increased at a much lower rate, suggesting that circumstances are different in this particular province than elsewhere in the country. Speaker, I also confirm that this particular question has a number of graphs and tables, and it will also then be submitted for the record. The Western Cape government has invested in the Law Enforcement Advancement Plan project as a means to increase the law enforcement footprint in those precincts, which record amongst the highest number of murders in our province. LEAP is currently deployed to 13 areas in the metro, as well as a reaction unit which is deployed in areas based on need. Speaker, there is another graph in this particular parliamentary reply, and in 5 of the stations where LEAP is deployed, we have actually seen reductions. But I want to be categorically clear. We are not seeing this merely as a number. It represents people, it represents family, it represents pain in many of our communities. So we remain committed to reducing the murder rate. In the 5 areas where there's LEAP officers, the additional boots on the ground, where we have seen strides being made, it ranges from 1.9% reductions all the way to 39.9% reductions. And the 39.9% reduction is specifically in the Philippi East area. That particular table shows that while murder increased by 6.8% in the Western Cape in the last financial year, murder in the areas where LEAP is deployed, we are collectively seeing strides being made. Over the 3 years from 2019-2020 to the 2021-22 financial year, murder increased at a higher rate of 5.4% compared with the increase provincially of 3.4%. It should be noted, Speaker, that LEAP was deployed in these areas incrementally, and some of them have had the benefit of LEAP deployments for a longer period of time. The province will continue, Speaker, to promote the use of data and evidence to ensure that the deployment of LEAP is made to areas where it is needed the most. The department, in alignment with the safety plan, as well as the target for halving the murder rate here in the Western Cape, and with the City of Cape Town, instituted activities that cannot be carried out by the South African Police Service, has increased visible policing, because we have seen we are 20 years behind in the actual resource allocation that we need from the SAPs. We are also making sure that the deployment of LEAP is earmarked to be data-driven based on the most recent homicide data. All LEAP members are deployed in accordance with the SAP's crime pattern analysis, which forms part of the joint planning between LEAP commanders and station commanders at a local level. Since inception of the program in February 2020, LEAP members were deployed into 5 particular areas: Bishop Lavis, Delft, Khayelitsha, Nyanga, and Philippi, which is the Nova Park area. The following areas were added from 2021 to date, which is Mitchell's Plain, Mfuleni, Kraaifontein, Guguletu, Atlantis, Philippi East, Harare, and Shamora Machel. A reaction team was established in July 2021 to assist with flare-ups of violence in areas, to assist the permanently deployed LEAP members by increasing the number of boots on the ground. With the establishment of this particular unit, there was no longer need to decrease deployment numbers in other areas when extra assistance was needed. Therefore, Speaker, LEAP is deployed to 13 identified areas experiencing rampant violence, in addition to the reaction team, which is currently deployed in Manenberg, bringing the total to 14. The operational strategy uses available data and statistics provided during the weekly engagements with the City of Cape Town to plan, execute, monitor, and coordinate deployment. This approach allows for monitoring and evaluation for the purposes of increasing the effectiveness of LEAP and to ensure continuous improvement. The operational approach is executed in an integrated manner with all internal and external operational role players in each of the identified policing areas through the area-based teams. The dominant LEAP arrests relate to drugs and liquor-related arrests. It shows that LEAP operations are directly impacting on the key causal factors of violence and murder, which are drugs and alcohol, which have been consistently reported to be the case with regards to alcohol and drugs within our top 10 homicide communities. And that definitely leads to an increase in our murder rate as well. LEAP operations will continue in its contribution of halving the murder rate by regulating and reducing the dealing of drugs, liquor, gun confiscations, and related crimes within these communities. Part B of that particular question is specific reference to the 50 million rand reduction. I want to state for the record, the 50 million will not affect service delivery for the following reasons. This is a co-funding agreement with the City of Cape Town, who also contribute to the LEAP. It should also be noted that a further 10 million has been allocated for the establishment of LEAP stations. In effect, this means that LEAP allocation is 360 million rand for the current financial year. The additional funds demonstrate the department's forward thinking in ensuring that community members has access to a physical LEAP structure to directly engage LEAP officers should they have the need to do so or feel uncomfortable in approaching the South African Police Service. Speaker, we will never want to politicize, and I would want to quote, to literally quote Khalid Sayed, who quoted earlier on that we must stop playing these political games. We are dealing with people. The Premier has made a bold statement. The Premier has made a bold statement to put money in order to help and assist the South African Police Service. I'm so delighted that last week during Minmek, it became extremely clear that places like the Western Cape and Gauteng was also noted that was contributing and helping the South African Police Service as the lead agency. So yes, we are making strides. In 5 of the stations, we are seeing reductions. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members. Honourable members. Honourable Dugmore. Order members. So it's Honourable Barnes will have the first opportunity, then Honourable Kama, Honourable Christians, and Honourable Bosman in that order. Honourable Kama, I see you. Honourable Minister Simmers and Honourable Member Maran. Can you please allow the member on the floor to have an opportunity?
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the incident last week in Ocean View was a stark reminder of how the MEC and his government is not caring about the people of the Cape Flats. What was more painful was to read a statement by the chairperson of the Standing Committee of Community Safety, where he says that where he speaks of parliamentary oversight, knowing that there will be no committee between now up until the end of June for community safety. However, the question is, we are spending millions annually on safety plan. We are spending millions on NHWs. How much of these funds will go out to the Ocean View community? How much support is the department through the safety plan giving to the Ocean View community? If I can just get a specific answer on that one. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Barnes. Honourable Minister, Minister Allen.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Thank you, Member Barnes, for that particular follow-up question. We have noted that that particular mass murder in Ocean View was during load shedding. And it is a stark reminder once again how difficult it can be for our SAPS members and for our law enforcement agencies. So I will provide a detailed reply to Member Barnes, Speaker, on specific reference to the Ocean View question. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, can I please ask you to settle down? Honourable Kama is the next person to pose his follow-up question, and he's on the hybrid system. Honourable Kama.
No, thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I think the question is linked to the target that government would have set for itself when it pronounced the safety plan, and the aim, the target being that of halving murder rate by 2029. And perhaps what we interested in getting from the MEC is an understanding of is government still promising the people of the Western Cape that it is committed or putting up plans that will ensure that we get to halve the murder rate by 2029. Because as Member Barnes is saying that, and as the MEC would know, that crime is a moving target. So our approach should have an integrated approach. Now, is the MEC convinced that by 2029 we would have halved the murder rate while we have this decrease? And targets are set out of an analysis that would have been made. And to just now move away from them would be a betrayal to the citizens of the province. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kama. Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I have caught some of the comment and some of the questions. I will answer this in this particular fashion. Through you to Member Kama, we remain our conviction that we are needing to step up. We are needing to put extra boots on the ground, considering the severe under-resourcing in our province. We have seen the benefit of LEAP. We have seen the benefit of what we are doing in community safety, in police oversight, that is actually strengthening the hand of the South African Police Service. We remain a key partner to the South African Police Service as the lead agency to fight crime, but we are wanting to give no particular department, no entity a free pass. We want to make sure that the work that correctional services is doing is actually leading towards safer communities. The work that each and every department in the Western Cape is doing, that the city of Cape Town is doing, and across our province is doing. So that remains our aim, and it is very bold and it is very ambitious when the Premier made that particular commitment to actually put a target to it. But I think if we are needing to be honest with ourselves, here we have a Premier that is bold, ambitious, and he put a target to it. But if all of us must take the time to reflect on it, that doesn't automatically mean, Speaker, that we are okay with 50% of our people being murdered in our province. So unfortunately, we would ideally want to live in a world where there's no murders, where our people's lives are not taken by unscrupulous gangsters, or where there is gender-based violence that leads to murders. We would never want to see that in our society. So we have put that particular target, and will do everything in our power to work with all role players and work with the opposition to ensure that we ultimately reach that particular target. And I'm looking forward to actually working more closely with our opposition members, because we are wanting to work together. And in 2029, we can all say we have reached that particular target to ensure that our residents and our young people can live in a world where they can be whatever they want to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister Allen. I now see Honourable Christians is also on the hybrid system.
Thank you, Speaker. Just a question, I just want to latch on to Member Barnes. Last night, I was out in Ocean View because of the problems in Ocean View. Minister, you are and the province is committed to the halving the murder rate, but this mass murder of 6 people, it's unacceptable. The question that I have is, I saw now again, 6 people were killed, and the 2 accused that appeared were it was struck off the roll because they did not appear. Their legal advice, the legal lawyer said that they did not appear within 48 hours. So that, brings more tension to the community, knowing 6 people were killed, and now the 2 accused is walking free. I want the minister to maybe assure us today that the court watching briefs will assist in that matter, because it just brings more tension in the community, and from that more murders or assaults or stuff can occur. I'm very concerned, and that's why I was last night there with a team just to go speak to the community, but that is very concerning. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Christians. Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the input and the question from Member Christians. I can confirm that as of this morning, I have already written to the DPP, Advocate Nicola Bell, to request that particular intervention from the NPA. I've also written to General Patekile in this regard. We have seen that that particular motive in the Ocean View killing is gang-related. However, we remain committed to make sure that the court watching brief will monitor it as well. And I will also, via the office and the ministry, request that correspondence be made available to this committee standing chairperson, so that can also be circulated to all members, because we are wanting to foster these relationships and we have engaged the NPA. The 48-hour rule and to bring a suspect in is a standard procedure, and it does bring me, and it maak my hart seer if the 48-hour rule wasn't adhered to, which is a straightforward straightforward undertaking that should have happened. But we've already in our oversight role taken that particular matter up and have formally written, like I've said, to the DPP and the PC in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The last opportunity is Honourable Bosman. Honourable Barnes, I did see your hand, but that was unfortunately after Honourable Bosman. Honourable Bosman.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, through you, in the department and the LEAP program's quest to halve the murder rate, we know that big strides have been made to remove illegal firearms off the streets of the Western Cape. If the Minister can perhaps elaborate on how many guns have been confiscated by LEAP officers, and if you can perhaps translate that into how many murders have potentially been prevented in the Western Cape through the work of LEAP.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Order members.
Thank you so much, Honourable Bosman, for that particular question. For this current,
Honourable Minister,
for the financial year.
Honourable Minister, can I just, before you continue, I trust that your answer will not be in anticipation of the following question on the question paper. So I just want to caution you to anticipation and the rule of anticipation.
Thank you so much, Speaker, for your guidance. I will answer it in straightforward terms that in the financial year 2022-2023, 174 firearms was confiscated directly by LEAP officers. Studies have consistently showed that one illegal firearm potentially contribute to 12 murders, and I will ask that the Minister of Education do the actual calculation on 174 times 12 and provide that to Member Bosman.
All right, thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that brings us to the end of that question that was stood over. Order members. We are now moving on to question 6 of the on the order paper. I now see Honourable Minister Allen.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I do appreciate this particular question as it relates to the number of illegal firearms by LEAP officers that have been taken off our streets. The first part of the question, the search and seizure procedures in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act applies. All recovered firearms are taken to the local South African Police Service station, where it must be booked into the SAP 13. It is then immediately becomes the responsibility of the South African Police Service. The SAPS, who is the owner of this particular process, must answer this particular question, and we've already escalated that to the SAPS. The department is currently also in the process of making that information available to you. Part 2 is the SAPS dispose of the firearms in 2 particular ways. Where the firearm is identifiable, it is returned to the original owner. Where the firearm is unidentifiable, which means the serial number is filed off, it is destroyed through the various SAPS processes. I can confirm that I have had an engagement with the South African Police Service on the 24th of February, and a subsequent letter was received on the 10th of March, which we are quite excited about regarding the development of a process where we will have a dedicated firearm destruction site here in the Western Cape. We have received written confirmation from the South African Police Service that they are keen in the Western Cape to ensure that that particular process comes to fruition, and we have now taken it up with National as there's a certain directive where we need approval in that regard. The question on number 3, we have also directed to the SAPS Forensic Lab, who inspects and test all recovered firearms, especially where there's a serial number that is missing. As soon as that information becomes available, I will make it available to the administration for circulation.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Before I see Honourable Bosman, I just want to advise members that the order will be as follows. Honourable Bosman, Honourable Christians, Honourable Barnes and Honourable Kama, and that will bring us to the end of that 4 opportunities. Honourable Bosman.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, through you to the Minister. Minister, we know that it's been years since the Western Cape has had a dedicated firearm destruction site, and currently firearms are being transported to Pretoria. As we've been told by both the provincial SAPs and national SAPs, they cannot trust the integrity of the process in the Western Cape. I welcome that you've said that there is a conversation to bring back a dedicated site, but can I ask if any work is being done to ensure that the site identified in the Western Cape is not the same Kuils River site that is next to the Gupta-owned scrapyard, where we know multiple firearms were taken from the scrapyard that were owned by the ANC's family, the Gupta family, and then caught back on the streets.
Thank you, Honourable Bosman. Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Side, is that a point of order?
Is the Honourable Bosman willing to take a question?
Honourable Side, order members. Honourable Side, Honourable Bosman is not on the floor. And now, so Honourable Premier, Honourable members, please settle down. That is not a point of order, and I'm not going to ask Honourable Bosman if he's prepared to take a question because he's not on the floor. Honourable Minister, I see you.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I can confirm that the site made reference to by Member Bosman is not the site that we are having engagement around with the South African Police Service. However, I am permitted, based on this particular letter that is signed by the Police Commissioner, I will quote parts of it, is that we have come to the agreement that the crushing of firearms and the risk associated thereto and the transportation will be extremely low should it be here in the Western Cape. We have visited Saldanha Steel specifically with senior management from the South African Police Service. I have written to SAPS at the national level, because for that procedure to take place here in the province, we would need permission in terms of National Instruction 6 of 2020, where permission should be given by National via the Divisional Commissioner of Visible Policing and Operations for such a deviation. And we will press on in that regard to make sure that the associated risk with transporting illegal firearms and confiscated firearms biannually up to Pretoria is eliminated, so that all guns can ultimately then lead to a place where it is ultimately destroyed and does not land back in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now see Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you. We also welcome the dedicated destruction site for the Western Cape, because the Standing Committee did engage the police on that matter. Minister, if you can tell us, we were very concerned about the guns leaving Cape Town to the destruction site in Gauteng. And are we assured that the number of firearms leaving this province is the same number of firearms being destroyed in Gauteng? I think that is a major, major worry, because we know, I cannot understand that some of these weapons, I'm not saying from that destruction, but some of the weapons that was so to say confiscated kill multiple, is involved with multiple shootings. It's very concerning. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Christians. Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Member Christians. I can confirm in my engagements with the South African Police Service for the financial year 2022-2023, there was two particular shipments of weapons that was transported to Pretoria. I've received verbal communication at this stage that there was no firearms that was during that particular Western Cape consignment that reached our streets again illegally. However, I would be more than happy to provide Member Christians with a detailed reply that I would engage SAPS on as well. But I can confirm that we have been very diligent, and I want to thank the committee chairperson for their diligence in this regard as well, because we have received confirmation or there was at least an appetite already since 2019, even before 2019, for a dedicated firearm destruction site. And I firmly believe that should more powers and policy directives and direction be given to our province, decisions like this could have been readily made by a premier that is innovative and committed towards making sure that our province is safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Barnes.
Thank you, Speaker. It is a known fact that the DA's latest tactic to push for devolution of policing functions to the Western Cape through its calling for establishment of centers to destroy these firearms in provinces. My question, Speaker, is should we expect creation of these centers in the Western Cape through the safety plan, like we have seen with the establishment of police stations here in the Western Cape? I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Barnes. Honourable Minister.
I'm so sorry, I didn't catch the question. Because I wouldn't want to say something.
Honourable Minister, can you speak to me and not get into dialogue?
So sorry, I just missed the last part of the question.
Right, please take your seat. Honourable Barnes, I will allow you that opportunity to repose your question.
I'm going to look at the MEC.
Please look at me and speak to me. Order, members.
It is a known fact that in the DA's latest tactic to push for devolution of policing functions to the Western Cape is through calling for the establishment of centers to destroy these firearms in provinces. My question, therefore, is should we expect creation of these centers in the Western Cape through the safety plan like we have seen with the establishment of the LEAP police stations in the Western Cape? I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Barnes. Honourable Minister, did you get that question?
Yes. Thank you so much, Member Barnes, for that particular question. I want to state for the record that the Deputy Minister indicated, and I would be more than welcome to Speaker to make the recording available to you, which you could then circulate to Member Barnes as well, where the Deputy Minister of Police stating for the record that he is welcoming the call for a dedicated firearm destruction site here in our province, and that he would do everything in his power to press ahead. And that recording was publicly available via the NCOP briefing that happened in 2020 already. And since then, we have actually seen further traction. So 2020 February, the Deputy Minister, via a parliamentary question that I posed in the NCOP, confirmed that the Deputy National Minister of Police, and Speaker, maybe you can direct which political party that person belongs to, but he ultimately directed that there should be an appetite for the call, because in the Western Cape, we believe in a contest of ideas. We believe in having an argument, and we are wanting to, for that particular arguments, to always land towards what is in the best interest of people. I also welcome sentiments coming out of Minmek, where there's a call for a new policing model from other provinces. So it's not who the message is coming from, it's the merit of the argument, and the call for devolution is gaining ground, and we will continue with that because we want policing closer to the people, and we support the Premier's call in that regard. And we obviously will press on towards doing everything in our power, from LEAP stations to LEAP members and further actions that we'll take during this particular year, because we definitely need a new policing model. And I'm so delighted that we have a Deputy Minister of Police that has echoed the sentiments to eliminate the risk associated to firearms landing back in our streets, that the Western Cape, which is a big contributor to all illegal firearms confiscated, should actually have a dedicated firearm destruction site here in our province. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Order members. Order members. Order members. The next person is Honourable Kama.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. And I want to get an understanding, Honourable Speaker, because, and I think the response that was given by the MEC to the first and the second follow-up, because it is true that the committee was discussing and we had a presentation of subs in the committee around this issue, and that they had sites that they had identified, and that they are keen and looking towards to having a destruction site here in the province that will also minimize the risks of what members are raising. Now, I want to get an understanding, Speaker, because the committee now is not meeting, and we've heard from member parties it's not going to meet up until June. Will the MEC be having any engagements with the department, with subs around this matter, where members, even if it's an issue of oversight, where members can be able to go and pressure towards having a site that is going to be able to distract in the province, and we know that will be done by the South African Police Service itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kama. Honourable Minister, I trust you got that question.
Thank you so much. I trust that I have heard correctly. Speaker, we are looking at all potential options in this regard, because we are wanting to make sure that our government actually save money in the long run. If we consider that guns are transported biannually, that is a human resource, but it's also a vehicle resource that is out of the province for a period of time biannually. Also, there's risk associated to it should a firearm not reach Pretoria. So we are looking, Speaker, to you, through you to Member Kama, we are looking at all possibilities to make sure that those guns are ultimately destroyed, because what we have seen and studies have shown, like I've said, one illegal gun could potentially kill 12 to 14 people. So we would never want that particular thing to happen. So we have given, the discussions is around hydraulic pressing to be installed at the Bellville South Central Store, but also with regards to either the burning or the melting of firearms, and even the crushing of firearms, so that we eliminate and mitigate all associated risk thereto, and we will definitely keep the standing committee up to date in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Members, that brings us to the end of question number 6 that stood over from the 13th of April. We now move over to question 2 under new questions. I see the Minister of Health and Wellness, Minister Mbombo.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you to Member Class for the question. The first part that is asking about how many permanent posts in regard to the Presidential Youth Employment Stimulus to the Western Cape, whether these are posts are interns or permanent posts. Indeed, the 1,600 are internships that are under the Structured Youth Development Opportunities. And the other part of the question is about whether the department deems internship as employment opportunities or training opportunities. In this context, according to the EPWP definition, all these opportunities for these youth programs are recorded as work opportunities or job creation. And also from the DPSA side, they also talk about these are also developmental opportunities. Just to add is that although we're talking about the 1,600, the overall, which includes also other internships coming from our Department of Directorate of Engineering in relation to the artisans, the overall internships that we have in the department during this period, it was 2,237. Thank you, Member.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, I will now allow Honourable Klaas to pose the first follow-up.
Thank you, Speaker. In a situation where a youth employment stimulus is provided for a given financial year, what step does your government take to make sure that those employed due to it continue to keep their post on even beyond, even during the financial year in which the stimulus is not available? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Klaas. Honourable Minister.
Inkosi ngombuzo Nkokheli, ingxaki apha ikhoyo yinto yoba asinayo imali kuba kaloku ezi posti nawo njengoko umbuzo sowutshilo into yoba bezikriyeyithwe yi-Presidential Youth Employment Stimulus apho imali ibisuka kuloo ngxowa. Ngoku ke ngoku xa sizawube sikwazi uba siqhubekeke ngawo asoze sikwazi. Umzekelo kula manani kanye kulo nyaka uxelayo nawo sikwazile ubaqesha abapha kuma-80 anesithoba. Asikwazi ke ngokuqhubekeka and futhi ngokwenyani into yoba zibalulekile ezi posts kwaye into yoba ufumaniseke uba apha kuphuma even a-graduate interns from, for example, i-medical physics, i-pharmacy interns, i-pharmacy assistants, i-forensic pathology assistants, all of those, but ingxaki into yoba asinayo imali. Kuphinde kwakhona uyijonge into yoba le program yayenzelwe into yoba at least it must be 12 months and then ikwazi uqhubekeka up to the maximum of the 24 months for into yoba abantu abatsha, especially kwaba sebegqibile i-matric nakwaba sebegqibe kwi-post-matric babe nayo lo ithuba loba exposed kwiindaba zengqesho. Ukhumbule ke Nkukheli into yoba kaloku sinabo umzekelo health professionals fumaniseke banabo bayashota for into yoba sinokwazi uba siqale ngaba basezi-interns kodwa bakhona abantu even abaphangela temporal ekusuppose uba siyabaqesha babe be-qualified ngokugqibeleleyo. Enkosi.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable Windvogel.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, in a recent reply by MEC Wenger to Member Kama, she highlighted that youth unemployment is about 32% and over 98% of this is constituted by African and colored youth. So is there a strategy of using government employment initiative to target specifically and address the crisis of colored and African people in the province? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Windvogel. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Member. Again, if you are specifically looking at this particular program, which is the majority of some of the youth, they're coming from the Premier Advancement Youth Enrichment Program as well. So it's about those young people who are coming for the internship, others are coming for learnership. So it means that there is a feeder system that is there. So it depends in terms of what is there in the system. Currently, for this particular question, for the 1,600, in terms of the, when you categorize according to what we have asked, 42.65% were African, 56.5% were the coloreds, because it actually focuses on those youth from the poorest background, and for the all other categories were 0 point something. So it depends what is out there from the pool and those who have applied. But what I know that from the premier side, plus also said by the departments, they always have these career exhibitions, inviting different schools across the province so that they could be able to apply when there's a need. Even when they come out of the program for the employment opportunities, again, they invite even the businesses where these young people could be able to apply. But generally for us, we are influenced by what is there in the pool and also what is it that we health can absorb. For example, with a call center, with the admin assistance, with the laundry assistance and all of those, which is maybe in other departments, it could be differently, but for us also, we are using it. I did make an example of for the pharmacy interns and the pharmacy assistants and the mortuary and all of those kind of other stuff. It's the ones that we have taken. Actually, we have even taken a part of the learnership, the social workers, clinical psychologists, which previously we couldn't be able to do it. And it really sad after those 2 years, if you have extended to 2 years, 24 months, although it's meant for 12 months, that now they have to be out of the program and become jobless. Thanks.
Thank you very much, honourable members. I saw Honourable Bartman and I saw Honourable Nkondlo. Colleagues, there is 43 seconds left of questions. I'm not going to allow any further follow-ups because it's not fair to pose your question if you can't get a response. So that, members, will bring us to the end for questions for oral reply. Our standing replies will be printed on the order paper. Honourable members, we now move on to questions to the Premier without notice. As per Rule 204, I just want to remind members that 2 follow-ups by the member posing the question, which relates to the original question to the reply. The first question to the Premier, without notice, as per Rule 204, is the Honourable Moran.
Thanks, Speaker, through you. Premier, recently in the city of Cape Town, one of your councillors, Malusi Boy, was dismissed from his post as a MACOM member. And it seems because of the series of that particular matter, the leader of the DA in the province, the Honourable Simmers, also suspended the membership of that particular person. My question to you, Premier, does Provincial Department of Infrastructure do business with gangsters?
Thank you, Honourable Moran. Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the Honourable Moran for that question. And it is interesting because I think it is in the public domain. I have already once seen that specific case where police have asked for or gone into that specific MMC's office, taken computers, etc., and also from an official within days of that happening and getting that information. The Honourable Simmers will concur that I called for a meeting between our legal teams and the Honourable Simmers to say, I need to find out, do we have any instance where this is happening in our government? I have formally written to General Patakile and said to him, General, I noticed what is happening in the city of Cape Town. It is of grave concern to me. I think, as the Honourable Member knows, the same kind of allegations are made through a court process in our police system, where they say gangsters are infiltrating our policing system. And there again, we've also put processes in place to really go and have a look, because absolutely it cannot be allowed that and that a gangster can be doing business with the state, or that a gangster can sit at the top table of our policing management system. Of course, in that meeting, and this is where it becomes very interesting, because in that meeting, specifically in the case that is also in the public domain, there are these allegations of a contract where they say it's the wife of a gangster. And there again, I asked the question, I said, so if this is true, what can we do about it? And the first thing we've got to do is look at the rule of law, and our legal team, I've asked them to go and investigate, to say at what stage can we put systems in place that could verify this. At the moment, the system is that there must be a judgment in a court of law that says this person is a gangster operating in the system and has been charged and found guilty thereof. And this is the real difficulty in the system. So I've actually asked our department to go and have a look at whether there are any companies that could be in this category. I've asked the legal team to go and have a look at what is it that would actually raise these concerns, and then what can we do about it? Obviously, if it is a convicted person, well, then there are mechanisms that you can deal with it immediately. If they are not, and just allegations, this is where it becomes difficult. But, of course, we need to have a look at that and see if we can put policy and rules in place that can make sure that we do not create any opportunity whatsoever that gangsters can be seen to be doing business with government.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier. Honourable Maran, that you have now an opportunity to pose a follow-up, your first one.
Thanks, Speaker. And as I've said, that the seriousness of the allegation was of such kind where the person was dismissed as a MACO member, and also his membership was terminated, not terminated, suspended by his party. Now, in the engagement, and it was in newspapers, the mayor with the Hawks, they mentioned two companies, which is linked to gangsters. I just wanted to make this point. But also, the previous MEC for human settlements came out publicly, the same as Malusi Boy, that when they arrive in the being appointed as MEC and also as MMC, these companies were already doing business with this provincial government and the city of Cape Town. And I will hear what you, in your response, that these persons have not been found guilty in a court of law and therefore regarded as gangsters. What action is the Premier going to take to ensure that this provincial government does not do business with gangs?
Thank you very much, Honourable Maran. Honourable Premier. Honourable Premier, my apologies. Is your microphone on?
Now it is.
There we go.
Thank you very much. And I'll say again, thank you very much, Honourable Maran. And obviously quite a lot of the detail, in the statement before the question came out deals with obviously another sphere of government. And I would imagine that in actual fact, the councillors, I think the ANC have got competent councillors in the city of Cape Town, that they are actually taking their role very seriously.
Order, members.
And are looking at this matter in the city. The second thing is, it's quite interesting when I'm listening to the Honourable Member, because I have also read that statement from the previous MEC saying that even when he was appointed, it would be interesting to see whether this company started doing business with this government when the ANC were in power in this province. That could actually be the fact, but will be interesting. Maybe we should go and dig that far back and see. But I'm hearing the interjection saying answer the question, and I actually did answer it in the first time I answered his first part of the question, but I will say it again, that I have engaged formally with the Minister of Infrastructure with his administration and the legal team in our government to say that I need an investigation to go and have a look at those specific companies that they mentioned and go and have a look at how these contracts are awarded and whether there is any tangible linkage and what we can do about it. So I have done that, and then added to that, as I have said earlier, that I have also written to the police commissioner in the province, General Patekile, to say that I'm aware that in the city there have been meetings between the investigations unit on this case and the municipality, and I've said that our government is available to meet with that team at any stage because we really want to make sure that we find ways in which we deal with this decisively. And I'll say that again, decisively. I also would like to say to the Honourable Maran, who seems to know a fair amount about this, that I also would request, if he has any detail that could be used in this case by the police services, that he also makes that available to this investigation.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Honourable Maran.
I'm not a gangster. Never was and never will be.
Once ever said
and
that.
I'm not doing deals with gangsters.
Honourable
the ANC
members, there's a member on the floor, Honourable Maran.
We can assure you, Speaker, when the ANC was governing this province up till 29, we haven't done business with these companies. I even don't think that those companies have existed at that time. Premier, now that you have basically said that you have asked for an investigation into, and I believe the Provincial Department of Human Settlements, when can we expect the terms of reference of this investigation that you have asked for? Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Maran. Honourable Premier.
Photographs of party congresses with gangsters with ANC t-shirts on at those party congresses. So you mustn't come and say things like that here. I also want to say that...
Order.
I also want to say that...
Members, order, members. Members, Premier, please take your seat. Honourable members, the Premier is responding to questions posed. You had an opportunity to pose your questions. The Premier must now respond. Please allow the Premier an opportunity to respond. Premier, over to you.
But the question was, what are the terms of reference for the investigation? There are no terms of reference for this investigation. I've had a meeting with the officials, with the minister concerned, and our legal teams and the procurement teams are busy looking at which companies, what kind of contracts there are with the current names, and we also will then from there, once we've got that detail back, actually look at whether there's anything we can do about it within the current framework, or can we rewrite procurement processes to make sure that this doesn't happen.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier, Honourable members. That is the end of the first question to the Premier without notice. I now see the Honourable Kaiser Philander.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker.
Order, members.
Speaker, ek glo dat my vraag aan die Premier vanmiddag nie veel konteks nodig het nie, want dit is in die belang van elke inwoner van hierdie land, dit is in die belang van elke inwoner van die Weskaap. Agbare Speaker, en dis nie politiese vraag vanmiddag nie, maar dit is 'n vraag wat regtig waar ek glo die nodige
Honourable Chief Whip, please take a seat. Honourable Dagmore, is that a point of order? What is your point of order?
We are on questions to the Premier. So far, after a minute of speaking, we haven't heard a question.
Honourable,
could I ask you please to ask the Honourable Chief to ask a question?
Honourable Dagmore, I will listen carefully. Honourable Chief Whip, over to you. Please pose your question.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. And as a mother, we have to face the reality that after a long day of work, you are unable to go and cook for your family. When you enter your town this evening, it will be complete darkness, as if it's doomsday. And I thank God that I live in a municipality run by the DA that has got traffic lights at the major intersections.
Honourable Chief Whip, please pose your question.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, my question to the Premier this afternoon: what progress has the Western Cape government made to make the Western Cape the first load-shedding free province in this country? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Chief Whip. Order, members. Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And obviously this question, I mean, you could hear from the Honourable Member, and I think that's exactly what citizens feel across this country every single day. Part of it was the question asked by the Honourable Class earlier today about what kind of interventions. Now, the interesting thing is that normally provinces don't do this, but we've been forced into doing this. I want to say that, I mean, obviously we've got the 1.1 billion plan and how that is going to help different local authorities. I also want to say that it's very interesting to see, once that intent has been put out there, and that we are engaging through our local governments, pulling them all together, doesn't matter which political party runs them, every single municipality in this province, saying what are we going to do to make sure that we mitigate this risk as quickly as possible, to bring about as much change as possible for our citizens, because as the Honourable Member says, mothers in our province are setting their alarms for 3 o'clock in the morning because they've got to get prepared for the morning before the 4 o'clock load shedding kicks in. Because they know that day after day they wake up in the morning preparing their children for school when there are no lights. It is a total failure of the ANC, and now provinces have to step in this province. And I think with our full plan, what's interesting for me is that we, since October last year, started to concretize this plan, put it in an Energy Council together, put a budget together, announced that budget. That budget is now in play. Part of the conversation earlier in questions to Parliament was how are we helping indigent households? This question following through, how do we make sure that we've got municipalities that are first in South Africa to be load shedding free? And I want to say that for me, before I get to those individual municipalities, I want to say for me, the interesting thing is how those municipalities are now, just like us, starting to put budgets aside for this crisis. For this crisis. And
order, members, order. The Premier's on the floor.
And this province putting 1.1 billion aside. The budget now announced by the City of Cape Town for energy relief at 2.3 billion. You see what's happening in George, in Mossel Bay, in Saldanha Bay, in Stellenbosch. And so across our municipalities, you are starting to see the budgets come out and the work that's being done. So we're probably seeing somewhere between 5 and 6.
Premier, please take your seat, Honourable Chief Whip.
Thank
Is that
you
a point
very much.
of order?
Yes, Speaker. I rise on Rule 39. And I think as the poser of this question, I have a right to hear what the Premier's response is. If the ANC don't like what they hear, they don't have to listen. But I believe the residents of the Western Cape also want to hear what the Premier wants to say.
Okay,
Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. Members, can I please ask, order members, there's questions to the Premier without notice. It's done according to the rules. The member posed the question, the Premier is now responding. Interjections are allowed but should not drown out the Speaker. Can I please ask that you allow the Premier to complete or allow the Premier the opportunity to answer the question? If you don't like what is being said, I mean, I can't rule on that, but what I can rule on is to maintain the decorum of this House. So can I please ask that you work with me in order for us to conclude this part of the session? Honourable Side, I have seen your hand, but I am still on the floor, so please take your seat. Members, can you please work with me in order for us to get through this section? Honourable Side, is that a point of order?
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much. Chair, according to Rule 39, it says a member may not converse aloud during the debate. I did not hear anybody conversing aloud. What I heard was normal interjections. I could hear the Premier clearly. Member Falanda is even sitting closer to the Premier than what I am.
Honourable Side, honourable members, I've made a ruling on that. Can I please ask that you do not drown out the speaker on the floor? Interjections are allowed, but should not drown out the speaker and should not affect the decorum of the House. Thank you very much, Honourable Windvogel. Honourable Premier, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So obviously, you know, with the question is about municipalities or the province becoming, mitigating risk of load shedding. And already Cape Town is far ahead of any other city in South Africa. I think what we're seeing, which is very interesting for me, is the almost competitiveness nature of local government. So seeing the innovative stuff that's happening in George at the moment is really cool to see. It's nice to see the piloting of projects on wheeling and energy trading. And of course that municipalities themselves have even last year and the year before been investing in mitigation programs, in making sure that they are getting to use less and less energy in a process of getting themselves as energy efficient as possible. I think for me, the first thing that is going to really give a clear indication over and above helping indigent households, which I don't want to repeat as we've had that in the earlier question, is the IRP. So now for the first time, a province will have an IRP, and that will give real clarity down to municipal levels what kind of energy is needed. I think linked to the IRP will be the pooled buying possibilities and the grid system itself. And of course, there are all these various programs that are within this plan that is going to help us mitigate this risk to make sure that we end load shedding. But the interesting thing is, this brings me to the numbers game. And I mean, I remember taking part in the debate in the National Assembly and looking at this absolute crisis in South Africa in numbers forms. And you know that as of today, we have had since September last year, 3 days. Since September last year, 3 days without load shedding in South Africa. Can you believe that number? 3 days. We've got 3 ministers, and we've only had 3 days without load shedding. That's just unacceptable. But of course, the biggest problems that we have are we've had over 5,500 days of load shedding since 2008. And we've had more than 3,000 days since the president was actually appointed as the responsible minister for the ESCOM war room. Years ago, that was his responsibility. And then, of course, since the president made those drastic announcements post the big blackouts that we saw in July last year that really shocked the country, or didn't shock the country because there was no power, but there's 260 days since that.
Honourable Premier, we've come to the end of questions to the Premier, but I'm going to allow you an opportunity to conclude.
So the problem is, and the question is, load shedding free. And that's the task that we are all focused on day and night. The private sector, the municipalities, and this provincial government to make sure that we enable our citizens through these programs within the next months and the next years to become load shedding free, because it's the load shedding that's killing jobs. It's the load shedding that's being putting pressure on every single citizen in this province.
Thank you very much. That, honourable members, brings us to the end of questions to the Premier without notice. In terms of Rule 204, members, we will now proceed to member statements as per Rule 145. I now recognise the DA.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, on Friday, the Standing Committee on Education visited, this week, we visited the 2 schools on our program. The 2 schools were Springdale Primary as well as Summerdale High School. We were quite amazed at the incredible pace of construction in terms of the number of days, and that it has been built for 530 additional learners in total in terms of space in just a few months. At Springdale Primary, 7 new fully furnished classrooms were built at a cost of 9.7 million rand, which includes the professional fees and the VAT taxes, providing space for a maximum of 280 learners. 4 of these are being used for grade 7 learners as they prepare for their transition to secondary schooling, which came from the high school that we also visited. The remaining 3 will be used for special education and support programs, including the WordWorks literacy program, teaching for learners with special education needs, and lay counselling to assist members in need. Principal Brown at the school reported that the members of the SGB at the school had called the classrooms, quote, manna from heaven, quote close, and that they are, quote, elated, quote close, at the new facilities. At Somerdale High School, they received 5 classrooms with a space for a maximum of 250 learners, and these were built at a cost of 7.2 million rand, including the professional fees and VAT taxes, and will be used for grade 10 and grade 11 students. Acting Principal Bartman, yes, same surname, but I don't know if we're a family, and it's not because there isn't a principal. The principal, Van Rooy, was sick, reported that they invited the community members in the area to view the new classrooms there, and they had been so impressed by the new facilities that they'd asked the school if there could be upgrades at the existing facilities to complete it in the exact same manner. I am very elated at the fact that because it's a curriculum extension school with new grades coming, that there will be new classrooms as well. And as the DA, we would like to congratulate the Minister and the department on coming together on doing what this government does best, and that is getting things done. I support.
Thank you, Honourable Bartman, and I'll see the ANC.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of the African National Congress, I wish to congratulate President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa for the overwhelming success of last week's investment conference.
Order, members.
President Ramaphosa has been able to surpass his initial target of securing
1.2
trillion in investment in 5 years by ensuring that 1.5 trillion is pumped into our country's economy as well as the Western Cape economy. This is the type of leadership that South Africa needs at the moment, and this is the type of leadership that the Western Cape actually yearns for. In fact, this investment conference promises so much for the Western Cape if only our local Department of Economic and Development and Tourism would grab these opportunities. In addressing the conference last week, the President pointed out that the digital economy was one of the many sectors that benefited immensely from this investment drive, and that over 200 billion rand has been secured for the telecommunications
Order,
sector.
members on my right-hand side. There is a member, Honourable Dagmar, my apologies, please take your seat. Members, there's a member on the floor. The members on my right, can you please afford the member on the floor an opportunity to deliver his member's statement?
Die waarheid maak seer.
Honourable Dagmar, please speak to me.
In addressing the conference last week, Speaker, the President pointed out the issue of the digital economy, and there are over 200 billion secured in this sector of telecommunications. At the same time, the President noted the potential the investment conference had for job creation, and that the fund would soon launch a new model for demand-led skills development, which will provide 800 million to fund training for unemployed young people with digital skills. President Ramaphosa doesn't just promise, he delivers. This isn't about PR, but it's about substance. We've seen that Witzenberg, in the form of Woolsley, has already benefited from a massive investment in our own province. Having BT's, which we assisted with the Belgians to make that happen, having BT's own target by over 25%, President Ramaphosa has set a new target of 2 trillion by 28. The ANC will not wait for Premier Windy to go on an investment drive, because it will never happen. Rather, he went on an investment drive in 2018 when he was the MEC, but then instead of positioning the whole province, he simply went to position one city, Cape Town, to investors. The DA will never achieve the kind of quality of investment that the ANC national government has been able to achieve since 2020. We say, Pambili, Ramaphosa, Pambili, and that is why.
Order, members. Honourable Dagmar,
please.
That is
why
conclude.
The African National Congress will exceed 50% plus 5 in 2024.
Thank you, Honourable Dagmar. Honourable members. Order, honourable members. Members. Okay, members, enough now. We have come to the end of that member's statement. I now will afford the EFF an opportunity. The EFF. Honourable members, the EFF is on the hybrid system. Please settle down in the chamber.
Speaker, member class is supposed to read out the statement, but I've got his statement with me if I'm allowed to read it. I'm not sure what happened to him.
Honourable members, Honourable Kasim, you may continue. It's allocated to the political party and not an individual member, so you may continue.
The Economic Freedom Fighters is shocked and dismayed. Okay, no problem. Okay, sure.
Order, members. Honourable class. Honourable class, is that a point of order?
No, it's not a point of order. I just apologize because my...
Members in the chamber, please allow me. I can't hear the member.
Yeah, I'm apologizing because my phone didn't want to open. I'm sorry for my colleague for interrupting him. I can continue. Thank you.
All right. Okay, members in the chamber, honourable class, I need to, for the record, rule that is not a point of order. You may continue. My apologies, Honourable Kasim.
The Economic Freedom Fighters is shocked and dismayed by the murder of a businessman and a community activist, Loyiso Nkohla, was shot and killed by assassinations in Philippi on Monday morning of 17 of 2023. Those who were close to Comrade Nkohla, his lifetime describe him as someone who was courageous, fearless, and ready to take a risk in order to advance the interest of the poor and the struggle communities. The circumstances surround the murder of Comrade Nkohla is the constant reminder of the environment in which we live in, especially in the Western Cape townships, where crime and murder continue unabated and remain the order of the day. Our poor people are being exploited on a daily basis by marauding gangs, belong to criminal syndicates who continue to demand protection fee from them in a situation where the victim must choose between giving in to their demands or face death. All this take place under the full watch of the powers that be in government, who continue to watch merciless and in idle as they refuse to spend resources to our people and only reserve those resources to themselves in a form of VIP protection service. Those in power...
Class, please conclude your sentence.
Having said that, the EFF would like to extend the heartfelt condolences to the family and of Comrade Nkohla, as well as those community who benefited from his activities and leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Class. I now see the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, load shedding is a crisis deeply rooted in the ANC's mismanagement and has severely hampered infrastructure projects across the Western Cape. Unreliable electricity supply, a direct consequence of the national government's failure to address energy issues, disrupts construction projects, raises their costs, and extends completion timelines for critical infrastructure projects. Residents now denied from accessing essential service on time due to power shortages. Honourable Speaker, rolling blackouts has worsened community safety concerns through the heightened risk of fire accident, particularly in informal settlements reliant on alternative energy sources during power outages, such as candles. The detrimental impact of load shedding on human settlements.
Honorable Maseko, my apologies. Please take a seat. Honorable Barnes, is that a point of order?
Yes, Speaker, but I'm withdrawing. I was seeing while the member was on the floor, we had a member there not speaking, having his video on. I wanted to call order on that. Thank you.
My apologies. Thank you. Please sit down. Honorable Maseko, my apologies for interrupting you. You may continue.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Apology accepted. The detrimental impact of load shedding on human settlements projects obstructs the Western Cape government's service delivery efforts, and that is a fact. The Provincial Department of Infrastructure, in response to the energy crisis exacerbated by the ANC's mismanagement, has been proactively implementing energy initiatives to ensure a sustainable and energy resilient future for the province. Honorable Speaker, the Provincial Infrastructure Department has committed 61.9 million towards various energy initiatives in the 2023-2024 financial year. This significant investment demonstrates the department's dedication to addressing the energy challenges faced by the province. The funds will support energy efficiency programs for public and private buildings, promoting the adoption of energy-saving technologies to reduce energy consumption. 24 million rand has been designated for the installation of solar geysers in 976 households. This initiative not only promotes the use of clean energy, but also alleviates the financial burden of energy costs
please conclude.
on vulnerable communities. Speaker, Western Cape Department of Infrastructure remains dedicated to advancing energy initiatives despite the challenges presented by the ANC-led national government. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maseko. I now recognize Good.
Speaker, no statement from us.
Thank you very much. ACDP.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it boggles the mind that 10 municipalities in the Western Cape have not been ring-fenced to receive conditional grants for 2023. National Treasury has stopped more than 60 million rand of conditional grants. According to the National Minister of Finance, the affected municipalities had failed to meet objectives, namely energy efficiency and demand-side management grant, the municipal infrastructure grant, the municipal road asset management systems grant, and the integrated electrification program grant. These municipalities guilty of not achieving these objectives are Overstrand, Cape Winelands, Cedarburg, Witzenberg, Cape Winelands, Beto, Sandala Bay, Kannaland, Knysna, and Beaufort West. Speaker, this is not acceptable and requires action by the Minister of Local Government in the Western Cape. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. I now see the ANC.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, communities play a pivotal role in the fight against crime. This was displayed by the ANC during its tenure of governance in the province through various successful programs in partnership with communities like the Bambanani Against Crime Initiative, as well as giving sufficient support to CPFs. The 2008-2009 annual report showed that the Western Cape recorded a whopping 23.9% decrease in the ratio of murder reported. That was the time of Bambanani. The ANC did not spend 1 billion to achieve this. It was through giving communities a meaningful role to play on crime prevention. Take lessons. This is still possible even today, if only the DA listened to our advice. The safety plan must prioritize addressing the causative factors of crime. It must prioritize investment towards addressing environmental design issues, which makes the environment conducive to crime, and the weakening of sabotage to CPFs must end, Speaker. Despite the Western Cape facing serious challenges of gun violence, extortion, and other violent crimes, the role of communities in addressing these crimes has not been clearly defined and stipulated. Therefore, the ongoing senseless killings of innocent civilians, government officials, and political leaders due to extortion should be placed squarely on the DA's doorstep. Learn from the ANC and prioritize the role of communities in the fight against crime. We are calling on the Premier to institute an urgent investigation into the allegations of collusion between the DA's administration and gangs in the province, like he did when we were similar allegations against the SAPS. We are merely calling for consistency. That's all. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Barnes. I now see the Democratic Alliance. Order, members. The Democratic Alliance, Honourable Seleko.
Agbare Speaker, baie dankie vir die geleentheid. Goeiemiddag. Honourable Speaker, as South Africa's energy crisis deepens, responsible governance must be implemented at all levels of government to address the looming Eskom grid collapse. The Democratic Alliance, recognizing the urgency of the situations, sent out an prior application to all other provincial COGTA departments to test their preparedness for a disaster like a total grid collapse. Rai, wat was die antwoord? Ons was nie geschokt nie. None of them could provide us with a disaster management plan. It is not surprising that the only DA-led Western Cape has a comprehensive disaster management plan in place to deal with such crises. Honourable Speaker, the Western Cape Department of Local Government has developed a 48-page document outlining an integrated contingency plan in case of a major electricity disruption. Moreover, the province is planning to distribute emergency load-sharing kits to 100,000 indigenous households across the province at a cost of 60 million. And Honourable Speaker, the majority of municipalities in the Western Cape do indeed have indigenous policies, so that the data is already there. We know which household will benefit. The DA-run Western Cape is leading the way in dealing with the ANC-created crisis, setting a perfect example for the provinces to follow. We are determined to continue fighting for South Africans so that if the ANC's self-made disaster of total electrical grid collapse occurs, we will have proper methodical plans in place to deal with any crisis and prevent being flung into yet another declared state of disaster caused by our loved ANC that is dying. Honourable Speaker, true leadership is evident in the Western Cape. We don't need to learn from a dying ANC. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Seleko. Thank you, Honourable Seleko. The Freedom Front Plus.
Speaker, the Freedom Front Plus is filled with a sense of pride after accolades were heaped on Dr. Corne Mulder, Freedom Front Plus Chief Whip, Western Cape leader and chairman of the Gauteng Metro Coalition, by a prominent political commentator and businessman Rob Hershaw recently. He described Dr. Mulder as an incredible man with heaps of political savvy and strong Christian conservative principles. But in contrast, he noted that under the ANC, this country was currently run by a criminal cartel that allowed a convicted serial rapist and killer Bester to escape from prison, organized transit heists, and destroyed electricity pylons in Pretoria. He concluded that the president has appointed a useless cabinet and that South Africa deserves better. We call on South Africans to wake up and rid this country of the ANC, who's destructive, before it destroys whatever is still left of a once prosperous, vibrant economy, while ANC cadres live in corrupt luxury. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Murray. Honourable members, I now see Al-Jamar. What is your point of order, Honourable Dagmar?
Point of order, I just wanted to ask,
Honourable
Honourable Murray, did he see what we were hoping?
Honourable, I just need to, Al-Jamaa, please note there's a point of order. I will recognize you now. Honourable Dugmore, I'm on the floor. I will allow you an opportunity. Honourable, the Honourable Member from Bruncase, my apologies. I will recognize you now. Honourable Dugmore, what is your point of order?
Chairperson, as the Speaker, once again, we don't want to disrupt the protocol of this House, but as we indicated last time, every time Honourable Murray speaks, whether virtually, we will hold these up, not to disrespect the decorum of the House, but to send a clear message that racism cannot be tolerated. Thank you.
Okay, that's not a point of order. Honourable Bruncase, I now recognize
You are a racist man.
Honourable members, please settle down. I now see Honourable Bruncase.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. As from tomorrow, Friday and Saturday, about 2 billion Muslims throughout the world will be celebrating Eid al-Fitr. After bidding farewell to the holy month of Ramadan, a month of spiritual upliftment and social activism to assist the less fortunate. It is obligatory on Muslims to give charity before the day of Eid by donating money, food, clothing to the less fortunate, so they too can enjoy this day of celebration. Thousands of pots of food will be cooked, which will be distributed to the needy. The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's peace and blessings always be upon him, says this divine feast should be used to help the needy and the oppressed. Hence, we have seen the recent show of solidarity for the oppressed and dispossessed Palestinians, Kashmiris in India, and all other oppressed communities throughout the world. In conclusion, Al-Jamaa calls on all Muslims in our country to foster bonds of unity. They should also ignite amongst all the marginalized people. So we pray that the Eid prayers nurture and boosts that unit in such a manner that it restores all the suppressed and downtrodden communities' dignity. I thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Bruncase. I now recognize the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, last week a man was bitten by a Cape Cobra in Noordhoek. In a province with 6 species of venomous snakes, this is not an uncommon occurrence. At this time, there was no ready supply of antivenom to treat him. This is a fact that should worry all of us in this House. Antivenom is a life-saving medication, and a shortage of it poses an unacceptable risk to health of our province. Unfortunately, Speaker, the blame for this situation must be laid solely at the feet of the National Minister of Health. Our department has spent months trying to acquire more antivenom, but these have been severely hampered by the massive order backlog at the national government-controlled South African vaccine producers, the only producers of monovalent antivenom in South Africa. Authorities have blamed load shedding for delays in production. Yet another example of the ANC's ongoing power cuts scuppering efforts toward public health in South Africa. But Speaker, these excuses do not remedy the situation on the ground. Minister Pagla has claimed that he is, quote, monitoring, unquote, the growing backlog of orders. But this course of action simply does not cut it. Minister Pagla and the South African vaccine producers should be taking urgent action to remedy this situation. If they don't, the consequences could be dire, and people may lose their lives in entirely foreseeable and preventable circumstances. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, in terms of Rule 145, subsection 6, I now give one or more members of the Executive present an opportunity to respond to members' statement for not more than 5 minutes collectively, if they so wish. Okay, it doesn't look like that. That brings us to the end of members' statements. Members, in terms of Rule 151, all notices of motions by members are required to be delivered to the Secretary for placing it on the order paper. These motions have been duly submitted and published on the order paper below the line. In terms of Rule 150, we now move on to motions without notice. I would like to inform members that in terms of Rule 150 pertaining to motions without notice, condolences and congratulatory were submitted to the Programming Authority prior to this plenary on the 11th of April 2023. Members are also reminded that motions without notice pertaining to congratulatory and condolences will not be allowed in the sitting that have not been processed by the Programming Authority. I have been informed by the Programming Authority meeting of the 11th of April 2023, political parties did submit the names of honourable members in the desired order of speaking and who had wished to move a motion without notice in the sitting of the House. I will therefore, just for noting and for the purposes of the minutes, call out the honourable members' names who have accordingly been submitted and approved. The following members' motions have been approved by the Programming Authority as follows. Honourable D. M. Bartman, Honourable D. America, Honourable F. C. Christians, Honourable R. Windvogel, Honourable M. Kama, Honourable P. Z. Lekker, Honourable A. P. Barnes. Honourable members, I now put the motions duly submitted and approved by the Programming Authority to the House. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. The motions will appear in the minutes of the proceedings and in Hansard in each individual's name as if that member had read that aloud. I will now afford the opportunity to members to move motions without notice as per Standing Rule 150, subsection 2D. This could also include motions without notice that were not approved in the Programming Authority meeting. Members are reminded that 30 minutes per Standing Rule 150, subsection 2, subsection D will start now. I recognize the Honourable, my apologies, the Honourable Murray.
Thank you, Speaker. Motion is that this House notes the untimely passing of journalist Greg Lee Smith. Notes that Mr. Smith was a kind and gentle soul and that his was a tragic loss, a loss of a young and talented person. Recognizes the passion he displayed for his work and that his passing will be felt in the Afrikaans and South African journalism industry more broadly. Notes further the service he gave to the residents of the Western Cape in promoting accountability and transparency in governance through his work. Highlights the importance of addressing psychosocial issues, particularly among our young people, and that this House relays its sentiments to the family of the deceased during this painful time. Rest in peace, Greg. We know that God has another angel among him now.
Thank you, Honourable Murray. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. Honourable Bartman.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move that this House notes with great concern the reductions to the Western Cape Provincial Equitable Share Health component. Notes that when the Western Cape Department of Health and Wellness provides home care to our most needy citizens, this care is not considered at all in the PES calculations. That it rejects the system whereby capable governments are penalized for serving the interests of the people and incompetent governments are rewarded with additional funding. And finally notes that the PES formula is flawed and must be reviewed in order to ensure the Western Cape receives its fair share and can continue to provide quality services to the people of this province. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bartman. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognise the Honourable Class.
Thank you, Speaker. I move without notice for the House to note that Zwellige Public Clinic in Hermanus is on the brink of collapse as it is failing to execute its service delivery duties. The clinic experienced long queues on a daily basis, and the majority of these patients are turned away by the staff at the clinic due to inadequate staff at the facility. Nurses and the staff of clinic complain that they are overworked and are unable to attend to every patient, as the Western Cape Department of Health does not want to hire more staff to assist patients at this clinic. EFF calls for the Western Cape Minister of Health to attend to this issue as matter of urgency and to all make sure that we have clinics operating 24/7. Cities such as Ekhululeni in Gauteng have clinics operating for 24 hours, Monday to Saturday, while Western Cape Department of Health spend most of its time bragging about clean audit and not responding to the patient's needs. I so move.
Thank you very much, Honourable Klaas. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is an objection. There is an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognise Honourable Dugmore. Honourable members, Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I move without notice that the House congratulates Ms. Desiree Ellis, who hails from the Western Cape, on being awarded the National Order, the Order of Ikamanga in gold, for her sustained encouragement to and advancement of women to succeed in their respective fields after she herself contributed excellently to the field of football. And further, that this House congratulates long-standing ANC activist and member Keith Gottschalk on being awarded the same order, but in silver. Mr. Gottschalk, as the notation points out, used his creativity to draw critical attention to oppressive and unjust laws through performative political poetry, work that motivated many to fight for liberation, while some, the opposite side of this House, supported the apartheid system.
Thank you very much, Honourable Dugmore. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Are there any objections? Honourable members, just answer the question. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is an objection. The motion will be printed on the order paper. Thank you very much. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I move without notice that this House notes with deep shock and sadness the brutal murder of former ANC councillor and ANC Youth League leader and human rights activist Loyiso Nkohla. Nkohla was shot dead during a meeting at Philippi train station in Cape Town relating to the relocation of people who have moved onto the Central Line Railway. He will be remembered for his selfless contribution to the struggle of the most vulnerable, and as a leader of Seskona, the Seskona movement, he fought for dignified sanitation for the residents of Cape Town's informal settlements and extends its heartfelt condolences to his family, friends and comrades in arms, and calls on all spheres of government to work together to build safer communities in the province. Vulnerable communities in the Western Cape have lost a hero, fearless fighter for justice and equality, and a selfless leader. Hamba ulalingo xolo mkhonto uze ubesibane ezin gatimiyo bele. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Dugmore. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There's no objection. Motion agreed to. I now see Honourable Barnes.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of the ANC, I move without notice that the House notes and is shocked at the decision taken by the city to not replace the street lighting along Baden-Powell Drive in Strandfontein. Since the lights went off in that area, the area has been a crime scene. Bodies are found amongst almost daily. Motorists are hijacked and assaulted. Strandfontein crime fighter CPF have promised to fight the city for this decision and negligence. Former Mayor Dan Plato promised to improve lighting on the lamps. At this time, due to the repeat of cases of vandalism and continued replacement of infrastructure is not feasible. We demand the city to fix the lights as this is a danger to society. I so move, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Barnes. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? There is an objection and the motion will be printed on the order paper. Honourable members, that concludes motions without notice. The Secretary will now read the first order of the day.
Consideration and finalization of the Western Cape Transport Infrastructure Bill, B5B 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now recognize the Honourable Minister, Minister Simmers.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, Premier, Cabinet members, all colleagues in the House. The purpose of the Western Cape Provincial Transport Infrastructure Bill is to provide for the planning, declaration, design, construction, maintenance, control, management, regulation, upgrading, and the rehabilitation of roads, railway lines, and related transport infrastructure in the Western Cape, and for other matters connected therewith. It is therefore, as the Minister of Infrastructure, that I table the Western Cape Provincial Transport Infrastructure Bill for consideration and finalisation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, as there is no list of speakers, I will afford parties an opportunity to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes each, if they so wish. I recognise the ANC.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. The ANC notes and welcome this initiative, which will lead towards the promulgation of the Western Cape Provincial Transport Infrastructure Bill and eventually into an act. Transport is vital to the well-functioning of economic activities and is key to ensuring social well-being and cohesion of populations, where it brings together the input used in the production of goods and services and getting output from the production process to consumers. The bill was first published on the 20th of July 2021. For an exceedingly long time, this province has been without a proper Provincial Transport Infrastructure Act, and this will go a very long way in solving some of the problems faced within the road and transport infrastructure of the province. The first public meeting for public participation and consultation was held in George and was very poorly attended, with only 2 public hearings, where the second was hybrid, held in Cape Town at the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, as well as MS Teams and on YouTube for public. And also, Honourable Speaker, originally there were 4 public hearings that were meant, but eventually they were only cut into 2. This poor public participation during public hearing is a concern. In the public participation model of the Parliament of South Africa, it is stated that the intention of public participation and involvement in democratic processes is primarily to influence decision-making process that reflect the will of the people. Certainly, the will of the people of the Western Cape is not reflected in this manner, and this deters the two-way communication process with the goal of reaching better and more acceptable decisions of the province. Speaker, for future references and experience, the Western Cape Provincial Government should put in more effort towards the mobilization of the public to be involved in the process of formulating the bills of our province. We hope that the MEC for Mobility as well as infrastructure will make sure that this is actually happening when an opportunity prevails itself. And we believe that they are going to take this advice as this is a cornerstone to making the best decision for the citizen of the province. We as the ANC support this bill. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mvimbi. I now recognize the EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. The importance of legislation is to offer a comprehensive legislative framework, determine rights and responsibilities and the relevant authority. However, legislation on its own can be compared to a frame which still requires to be supplemented by regulation and then followed by the actual implementation and execution. Without the execution of the policy framework and its regulations, then legislation remain useless, as in real life where we have a plethora of legislation invoking government to do something so far as service delivery is concerned, but but then there's nothing done. In the Western Cape, there's a serious need for investments in the road infrastructure in order to enhance the transport road network. As things stand, there's a high volume of traffic congestion during peak hours in the ordinary business day in the metro. Majority of the people spend most of the early hours of the morning stuck in traffic, resulting in them arriving late at work or opening business late. This means that a lot of productive time and energy is being lost on the road, and consequently, this affects human productivity from morning up until knock-off time, and further has adverse effect on the economy. A commuter from Khayelitsha whose shift starts at 8 and finish at 5 must be on the road at 5 a.m. in order to avoid traffic and being late for work. And if they arrive at 6 in town, they still have to wait an extra 2 hours doing nothing before the actual shift starts. So this is evident that the province needs to build more road infrastructure that will also accommodate public transport and enhance safety. More so far as the bill is concerned, we take note of the roads subsidies from the province to municipalities, but we also ask for the monitoring of those funds to make sure that they are spent for for the purposes rather in which they were given. When it comes to joint administration of the roads, we hope that there will be urgency when it comes to the renaming of the roads. The province must play a leading role to make sure that the offensive colonial and apartheid street names are changed and replaced with those reflecting the new public order. Western Cape can no longer afford to have street names and after racist individuals who subjected black and colored people into slavery and other forms of abuse. In conclusion, as the EFF, we hope that the spirit of the cooperative government depicted in the bill will be positive and progressive. We also hope that service delivery will not be hampered by endless consultations between the province and municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kasim. I now recognize Good. Honourable August. I'm going to continue. I now recognize the ACDP.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the ACDP welcomes and support the bill because we believe transport plays an integral part when it comes to the Western Cape economy. But Speaker, I don't know if it's true or not, but they say, I've heard from people that because of the transport issues that we have in Cape Town, many people choose to remain in Cape Town and not use transport going home because of the inefficiency and unreliability of transport. So this is definitely, and I need to agree that a lot was done to have the people at the public hearings, WhatsApps, and all of those things were done. It's a pity that people did not come out because we need the buy-in of our people to make this work. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. Freedom Front Plus.
I'm just waiting for Cameron Dugmore's placard first, sir.
Honourable members,
okay.
Honourable Marie, you may continue.
Thank you, sir. Speaker, I believe that this is something to be welcomed. It's long overdue. But the main issue here is, are we going to continue bringing people to the work or taking the work where the people are so that there's less congestion on our roads? Cape Town has become a cul-de-sac. You come to Cape Town to park, and I hope this bill will introduce new methodology in terms of road transport. We must go back to rail transport. There's too much emphasis on road transport, which leads to our roads being destroyed by heavy trucks carting goods instead of the trains and the railways doing it. So if they can address this, if this is the idea behind the bill, and regulating taxis, which has become a virtual army. They burn any competitions transport on our roads, whether it's buses or lorries. If it's not a taxi, it gets burned. And unless we address this issue, no amount of legislation will see that there's a better mode of transport, more safe, more acceptable to the public.
Thank you very much, Honourable Marie. I now see Al-Jamaa.
Thank you, Speaker. Aljamas, no declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been informed by the table staff that Honourable August is experiencing technical difficulties. So I'm going to continue with the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I forgive some of our members who made declarations without even knowing what's in the bill. I can understand that Honourable Kasim was not here at the time when we discussed the legislation, but Honourable Christians and Honourable Murray, they have the foggiest idea what this bill is all about. Needless to say, Honourable Chair,
Honourable
the DA in the Western
America,
Cape.
Honourable America, please take a seat. Honourable Chief Whip, my apologies. Is there a point of order?
Yes, it is, Mr. Speaker. Member America is casting aspersions that some of the members of this House do not know what they are dealing with today. And he is specific.
Honourable members, there's a member on the floor. Honourable Chief Whip, please speak to me. I'll protect you.
Mention the name of Member Kasim, and I want you to roll on that fact because he is casting aspersions.
Honourable America, can I please caution you to not cast aspersions or casting aspersions on any member of the House is not parliamentary and will not be tolerated. Can I please ask that you continue with your speech?
Noted. Speaker, my hand is up.
Honourable Christians, is there a point of order?
Yeah, Speaker, I'm sitting with a bill in front of me, but because I don't sit on the committee, you know, you try to cover what you can, but the member must stop criticizing other members. Our thinking is not his thinking.
Okay, Honourable Christians, I note your point of order. I have ruled on a similar point of order. I have cautioned the member to please stick to the order of the day, and please do not cast any aspersions on any member of this House. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Noted. Speaker, the DA in the Western Cape fully supports the Provincial Transport Infrastructure Bill. The importance of collaboration between the provincial government and municipalities in managing road and transportation infrastructure projects cannot be overstated. The bill seeks to address critical issues such as the management and approval of infrastructure-related operations, the designation of provincial public transport infrastructure, and the creation of a legal framework that enables the province to manage infrastructure effectively. The approval of this bill will determine the direction of innovation transportation infrastructure in the Western Cape. Honourable Speaker, with the passing of this bill, we can expect to see improved transportation infrastructure that will benefit all commuters in the Western Cape. I urge all members of this Western Cape Provincial Parliament to support this bill. And when doing so, we will demonstrate our commitment to the development of our transportation infrastructure and improving the lives of our citizens. Speaker, allow me to thank the members of the Standing Committee, Honourable Wimby, Honourable August, for their continued support and inputs in making this bill a better bill.
Honourable
Particularly
America,
Honourable van der Westhuizen.
Honourable America, can you please conclude? Your 3 minutes has expired. Please conclude.
No, she was not there once. Okay, so the man is interrupting me.
Honourable America, please speak to me.
Honourable Speaker, I will continue. Thank you. I repeat, Speaker, allow me to thank the members of the Standing Committee, Honourable Wimby, Honourable August, for the inputs in making this bill a better bill, particularly Honourable van der Westhuizen for his invaluable contribution. This gratitude is also extended to the members of the public, municipalities.
Honourable America, can you please conclude? Your time has expired.
3 minutes. Okay, thank you, Chair. Lastly, I wish to thank Ms. Jackie Gooch, HED of Infrastructure, Mr. Carl October, Mr. Amanda Tour from the Premier's Office, and all the colleagues in the Department of Infrastructure and Mobility for their dedication and hard work in making this bill possible. Lastly, Speaker, the
Honourable
bill is
America,
the
please
first
take
of
a
its kind
seat.
in South Africa.
Honourable America, I've asked you to conclude twice already. Please take your seat. I now recognize the Minister, Minister Simmers.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to all the members that were audible and in the House for the support. But obviously, pursuant to the extensive public participation as alluded to by the Standing Committee Chairperson, to now see the Western Cape Provincial Transport Infrastructure Bill having now gone through the House, which will now, I believe, be I'm looking forward to the Premier assenting to it to coming to an act of law in the province. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members and Honourable Minister, that concludes the debate on the consideration of the principle of the bill. I have to announce that there are currently 36 honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. Are there any objections to the approval of the principle and the finalisation of the bill? There's no objections. Agreed to. The principle and the finalisation of the bill is therefore approved. The Secretary will read the bill.
Western Cape Provincial Transport Infrastructure Bill.
Thank you very much. The bill will be sent to the Premier for assent. Honourable members, that concludes the business for the House for the day. The Secretary will now end the meeting and all members will be exited from the sitting. The House is adjourned.